Okay, so yesterday we saw like how can we authenticate to a Git repository using authentication technique called basic authentication, where the user authenticate himself with the help of username and password. We also saw how can we authenticate instead of password, how can we provide access token and authenticate to a Git repository. So these two ways we had seen yesterday, which comes under basic authentication. Now today we are going to talk about how to authenticate with the help of SSH key. So SSH authentication is another type of an authentication which is done with the help of key pairs. So we get the pair of keys. So one key is a private key which resides on the machine from where we are going to access the Git repository, and the public key, basically this public key gets added to the repository we want to authenticate to, right? So we had already done this. I'll show you that in preferences. Let's go to SSH keys, and here I have already added my public key. Now we are going to authenticate to our repository with the help of private key what I have on my system. So there are multiple options how we can do this. So let's talk about the very first option. For that, let's go to the command prompt. Okay, and we have to run one command which is SSH-I, and then we have to provide the location of our key, which is, in my case, it is in this folder. I have this SSH keys, and then we have to provide the domain. So we want to use this key to authenticate ourselves with gitlab.com. Okay, now as soon as I run this command, what will happen is, let's run, then I'll talk about it. So yeah, so now it is asking me, are you sure you want to continue connecting? So we are trying to connect to gitlab.com with the help of this key, and so it is asking me for my confirmation. So I'll say yes, and okay, so currently it is saying that permission denied. Okay, let me go and check the folder. So basically on our system we get one folder called .ssh. I'll show you that. See users. So in my case it's Pranad ID, the current user. So here we will see one folder called .ssh. Here it is, and we have got one file here, known host file. Let me delete this file and let that get created again. I'll just rename this. Okay, and let's perform the step. So let's run the command again. So this is where I have my files, right? So let's run. Okay, just a second. It is, what basically this does is it creates a one file called known hosts in your .ssh, and inside this, if you go and check, it adds the domain gitlab.com. Okay, and then it adds the key. This is the public key of the repository. Okay, this is what it adds, and then whenever you try to connect to that system or that say server gitlab.com, it uses that key, and it basically uses that key and then it adds it there. So let me see if it looks like I have some other key also added there, which I will just delete. Just a minute, let me go to the preferences and let me go to the SSH keys and see if I have any other public keys added anywhere. Okay, so this is fine. Let me just see which is the key which has been added here. Yeah, it looks like it is adding some different key. Let me just delete this and let me add the key again. Let me open or edit it with Notepad++. Let me take the key. Let me go to the add new key. Let me specify this key, and that's it. Add key. Okay, now let me delete the known host file again. Let me see if there is any issue with the path here. Looks like okay, just a minute. It is not able to find the keys. Let me generate the keys again, guys. SSH key gen. And let me generate it in the default path itself. This is the default path .ssh. This here only we will generate the keys. I will not enter any passphrase. Okay, and I have got the keys generated here. Now let's run the command again. So I'll just provide the location. Okay, it says that access denied. That's fine. That's absolutely understandable. The reason is I have got the keys created on C colon, which is my a drive where on I have my operating system and all those things installed. So I need to start this command prompt with admin privileges. So let me start this as administrator. Okay, now let's run the command ssh-i, and then we need to provide the location, and then we need to provide git@gitlab.com, and let's hit enter. me just provide the name also. It is actually adding a different public key into the known host. That's the reason it is not able to take it. Okay, let's try with the another way. We have multiple ways though. Let's try with the other way. I'll show you the other way also now. Now what we need to do is we have to go to the SSH folder, right? And there we have to create a file called config. Okay, so let me create a file called config here itself. Let me just delete this file for now, and let me right click new, or we can do it with the git bash. Let's go to the git bash. Yeah, and we have to say touch config. So this command will basically create a file config in this directory. Yeah, I have got the config file created here. Let's open this, and we have to provide here host gitlab.com. This is what we want to connect to. Host name, again gitlab.com. Then we have to provide one preferred authentication public key. So we want to authenticate using public key, and then the path identity, it is called as identity file, right? And the location of this file. Let's go to the location where we want to clone the repository now. So I'll just go to here. Let me remove yeah, it is not there, so let's clone here. So let's go to d:/cd this directory. Let's clear the console, sorry, cls, and then we want to clone. So now when we will clone now, we will clone the repository using SSH. So let me go to DevOps repository. Let's go to the clone, and we are going to use this now, this command. Sorry, git clone and then URL. Yeah, so it is saying that the authenticity of the host can't be established. So because it's not there in the known host file, there is no known host file here, right? So it is saying that it is now trying to establish the connection. So do you want to continue? So once we will say yes, it will create a known host file, and in that it will create the entry of the public key there. Right. So, okay. So it says that the, okay. So it says that it's a directory. Okay. Let me id underscore rse. Let me do it one more time. CLS. Let's clone. Okay, so it says that permission denied. So it means that the same error we are getting. So it is adding actually a different public key, and that's why it is not allowing me to access that. Let me see where it is taking this public key from. It is not taking the one which I have added actually. Yeah, let me see if I have the public keys somewhere else. It looks like there is some issue with the public key we have added. Let me see. Not sure why it is not authenticating it. Hmm. Yes, it is correct. Let me see it if it has saved it somewhere else or what. Just a second. Config. See if there is any folder called .git. Git config. Just a second. No, it is not taking it from here. I thought it is there. Okay, but actually it is not allowing us the access to the Git repository. Just a second, please make sure you have the correct rights and the repository exists. Okay, let me see the rights we have provided to this SSH key. Let me delete this and add it back. .ssh, and this is my public key. Yes, we'll just put it here and absolutely fine. Now let's try. Yeah, there is no known host. Absolutely fine. Let's clone. Yes, so it is saying that it can't be established. Okay, and say yes. Yes, now it is able to clone. So there was some issue actually when I had added this here. Okay, now you can see I got my repository cloned successfully. Okay, let's do it one more time. I'll just delete this known host. Inside this config, we added one section. Just see this section once. See, we have to have this section host. Here we have to provide the domain of the host, that is gitlab.com. Host name should be the same, gitlab.com. Here you should mention that the authentication type you want is with the help of public key, and identity file is nothing but your private key file. So this is your private key file, so that you need to mention here. Okay, now once you do this, you have to run git clone. So once you run this git clone, it will read this host name which you are trying to access. It will go to the SSH folder config file. It will check the host name you are trying to connect. It will take the private key which you have configured here for the identity file, and then the authentication would be done. So let's do that again. Okay, so it says that the folder is already there. Let me remove that folder, this folder, and let's clone. So I'll say yes. So it will add the entry into that known host file. The known host file gets created here. Yes, now the clone is successful. And if you open this, so you will see that one entry gets created for gitlab.com, and its public key gets added over here. Right now, when I'll try to clone the repository. When I have this known host, I'll again clone it. Let's clone it again. Now it will not ask for my confirmation. See, it has not asked my confirmation now. It has cloned the repository. It has taken the public key. I have got the private key. So the authentication is done. So this is second way. Let's try the first way again, the one which we were doing. So let me rename this for now. Let me delete this known host also, and let's try the first way which we were doing, which was SSH -i. -i stands for identity file. Here you need to provide the path of your identity file, which is this ID RSA in my case. And let's then we have to provide the domain also. So we have to run this command with one more argument, which is git@gitlab.com. Let's say yes. Yeah, so it says that welcome to GitLab Pranodai. So it means the authentication is successful this time. That time I had few issues actually when I had added the public key over here. That's why it was not able to authenticate me. But now it is able to authenticate me. You can see welcome to GitLab Pranodai. So it has authenticated me now with the help of SSH. So in known host, again you can see it has created the entry, the same entry which it had created previously. The same entry it creates. Either you use this method or you use this one. This command, we are providing our private key, then the domain we want to connect to. So once you do this and hit enter, it will ask for the confirmation to add this entry into the known host file. So whenever subsequently you will try to connect to this, it will go to the known host and it will take the key and the authentication would be done, right? That is how it is. Now let's see the third way. So there is another way to it, the third one, where we have to run one command, which is git config -- global. So basically what we are doing is we are configuring which key to use in the configuration of the git itself. Global, and then I would say core dot SSH command, and then we will provide this command SSH -i, and then the location of our :id_RSA. So now once we run this, what happens is there is a git config file. I will show you that, which I had opened it just now. See here, .git config. You see it has been updated just now, 8:15, 30th August. So you can see that it has been stored here. So whenever now we will try to authenticate with the help of SSH, it will use this command and the authentication would be performed. Now let's perform the git clone. Let me go to this and git clone. Okay, so actually the slashes, you can see here it has removed those slashes because there are only single backslash. We have to provide double backslashes so that it would be able to access this. So we have got rather double, but let's provide 2 more. Yeah, so let's try again. CLS git clone. Yes, now the cloning is successful. Let me remove the known hosts file again. Let me remove this and let's do it again. Yes, so what happens is when you run a git clone command, it reads the git config file, a config file which is there in your user directory .git config. This file it reads, and then it reads the SSH command. So it adds, this is the same command. If you guys remember, this is the same command which we had executed just previously, just in the previous scenario. So it runs this. Again it asks for the confirmation, would you like to add this as a known host? So I would say yes, and the authentication would be performed. Right, so these are the ways you can authenticate. Just a minute, guys. are the three ways you can authenticate with the help of private key, SSH keys. One way is to run this command ssh-i and the path. I'll show you that one more time. SSH, this one. So this is one way. Another way is you will create a config file in your .ssh folder. In the .ssh you will create a config file which I had just renamed, and you will provide the details here. This is second way. And third way is you can add the SSH command in git config, which is nothing but this. And for this you will run this command. Git this one, git config -- global core.ssh command, and you will provide this command. This is the same command which we had done, which we had execute to add the entry into the known host file, right? So these are the three ways you can authenticate with the help of public private key pair. Now let's see in Jenkins how can we provide this authentication information. So let me go to the services and see if my Jenkins is up and running or not. Yes, someone has raised a hand.
Can you share all these three ways to connect in that document that you've created, and can you share that document on the drive?
Sure, definitely. I will. So let's go to the Chrome and let's access our Jenkins. What I'll do is I will put that immediately here. Let the Jenkins server start. By the time I'll just put these three ways here and I will share this file. Okay, so following are the three ways we can connect using SSH. One is run following command, and that command is this one. And here I'll just put a placeholder, path of private key, and I'll just put an example also. For example, this is one way. Second, create a config file in current user.ssh folder and put the host section as shown in image pin, and I would put the image there. So I'll just put this image. Right, this is the second way, and I'll just put a note that name of the file should be config and it should not have an extension. Basically, if whenever you will create a config file, no, let's say if you create it in this way, right click, new, and say text document, and you provide the name config. But now this config has been saved with txt extension. This will not work. You should not have the extension to the file. So what you should do is open a git bash from this location and run a command called touch config. So now you can see the file got created. It has been created with a type file. It should not be a text document file, otherwise it will not work. Okay, so please remember this. And third way is we executed this command git config, this one, run following command. So run following command, we will just put the double backslashes. Now what this will do, this will add I'll go to the tip.git config. This will add SSH command in .git config file, which gets created in current. Guys, this is just a placeholder. Whatever is your current user directory, inside that it would be created. Shown in image below. Right, and here I would say I'll just put a placeholder. SSH private file. I'll put the example. Yes, right. Let me save this. And I would say SCM git Okay, so these are the three ways. Now let's go to Jenkins. let's sign in. Right, so we are in the Jenkins now. Now let's create a new job. Now I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to show you how Jenkins authenticates with the Git repository. We are not going to specify any other things into the job as of now. We would be doing it afterwards. But for now, let's concentrate on how Jenkins authenticates with the Git repository. So I'll say Git authentication. Let's create as a freestyle job. Let's go ahead. Let's configure now. Now here, let's scroll down. Let's select this Git. And here we have to provide the URL of our repository. First we will see how it does with the basic authentication, that is username, password, and then SSH. Okay, so let's go to our repository. So let me go to DevOps batch. Let me go to clone and let's get the SSH URL, and this URL we are going to put now in Jenkins here. Once we put, so our access to the repository has been authenticated. Now let's understand why Jenkins is able to access the repository. I have not provided the username and password here. Still Jenkins got the access. Let's understand why. I had already mentioned this, but let me mention it again. If you guys remember, I had mentioned one thing, that when you access Git using the Git clone and using this HTTPS URL, Jenkins prompts for the credential, right? And then you enter your username and password there in that prompted window, and your credential gets stored in credential manager here. And now my credentials are here, I suppose. Just a minute, let me see if I have my credentials. Okay, I do not have it. Let me apply and save, and let me go to the configure. Actually, Jenkins should not get an access to this repository because we have not provided the Jenkins of our credentials, right? So not a problem. Let's see how can we create a credential entry. That is very important. How can we provide an entry? How can we create basically credential and we can provide the information? So for that, let's go to the dashboard. I'll just check it afterwards why Jenkins is not giving me an error, because Jenkins should give me error here. It should say that access is not allowed, something like that. It is able to get the access. Immediately it shows the error here, but right now it is not showing. Let me see why. But it shows the error here, and most of the times if you have your credentials stored in the Windows credentials or in the web credentials, so Jenkins take it from there and then it accesses your Git repository. But I just checked, my Git credentials are not there stored here, but still Jenkins is not giving me an error, which I'll see a little bit later. But let's not waste time and let's get on with the creating the credential entry. Let's go to the dashboard, manage Jenkins. Let's scroll down and here let's go to the credentials. Let's go to this system store, this global, and let's add the credential. So what kind of credential you want to create? If you want to create username and password, that is something you want your Jenkins to authenticate with your Git. So select in this kind drop down, select username with password. Then provide your username, so which is deepranodai@gmail.com, and here you need to provide the password or access token, anything would do. Okay, as I told you yesterday, access token is something which you can use in place of your password, right? So let's go to the preferences. Instead of password, I would provide a access token. Let's create one more access token here. We had created the access token, but now we won't be able to retrieve it, right? Once you leave the page, then you won't be able to retrieve your access token, right? So let's create one more. Yesterday's I think I had deleted, so let's create one more. I'll create one more access token. I will give the name as same name. Here I'll just put this the default, the access to this token is allowed for 1 year, and here I need to provide the permissions. So I just want my Jenkins to be able to pull the code. So I would say read, and I'll create the access token. Let me see the access token. This is my access token. Let me copy this and let's go here and provide the access token here in this field. Now we can give any name to this credential entry, any unique name. There should not be any other credential entry with the name you provide to this. That is the only condition. So I'll say git lab access. And if you want to provide a description, you can provide, but that's not mandatory. Let's create. So I have created the credential. Now what you need to do is you need to go to dashboard, go inside the job Git authentication. Let's go to the configure and let's scroll down, and here provide that. See, this is the credential entry which we have just created. So just select this and say apply, right? And now Jenkins will access this repository with the username and password configured in this credential entry. That is how the credentials are used. Now let's do one more thing. Let's go back to dashboard. Let's go to the manage Jenkins. Let's go to the credentials. Let me go here If we want to update anything into that credential entry, we can do that. So if I want to change the password, I can. So let me change the password and save. Let me go back to the dashboard, get authentication, configure. Okay, now I have changed the I have changed the password. I mean, I have just provided a wrong password. So basically the old versions of the Jenkins, old versions of the Jenkins used to provide error here itself immediately, but now this version of the Jenkins doesn't look like providing us the error immediately. Maybe once we will run the job, and when the Jenkins will try to access that repository, then it will give us the error about the authentication. But the old version of the Jenkins used to immediately give us the error here. That's why I didn't get that error. Even if I had not provided any credential entry, still Jenkins didn't provide any authentication error here, because it looks like in this version of the Jenkins they are not providing the error immediately. But when we will run the job, and when Jenkins will actually try to access the repository to pull our code, Jenkins will provide us the error. Okay, but we will see this once we will run the job. Maybe we can try to run this job right now. We are not doing anything meaningful here in this, but still let's go and run this. I'll just run this and let's see what it says. Yeah, so it is trying to access the, you can see here, get authentication. It is trying to, let's go and check the logs. Yeah, see here, now it should provide us the failure, and this failure could be because of the wrong authentication information, right? That's why it couldn't pull the repository. Just a second, let me see. Yeah, it is cloning the repository. Okay, let me just do one more thing, that from our git config, let me rename the git config also. Yeah. And let's run this again. Let me build now. Yeah, it is not able to pull because of the access issue, authentication issue. Now let me go to the credentials. Let's scroll down. And let me change. You can see here, this has been accessed 2 times. This, it shows here that this particular access credential has been accessed by this job 2 times. This is the one, instance 1 when it was accessed, instance 2 when it was accessed again, right? So you can see also here that which credential entry has been accessed by which of the Jenkins jobs. So let's update and let's change the password. Let's go to dashboard and run the job again. Okay, understood. So what it is saying is, okay, let me go to the configure and let me scroll down, and here basically a master branch. Let me see if I have a branch created. That's why it is not able to pull actually. Just a second. Let me go to DevOps. And let's see if I have any branch. Yeah, I have. What is the name? It's a main branch. Okay. So we have to change here. So by default, actually it tried to look for a master branch there to pull the code from, but we do not have any branch called master there. So let me apply and see. And let's build. Yeah, now it is successful. Now it could pull the code from the branch, and we can see in the workspace. I had also talked about workspace of your job, so you can go and check. You can see it is successfully pulled in the workspace. You can see in the workspace the code has been successfully pulled. You can see there is only one file called readme, but it is successful. Now let me go back and change the credential. Let me go back and change the credential now. Let me incorrect it. Let me go to dashboard, manage Jenkins. Let's go to the credentials and let me go here. I'll say update. I'll say change password and I'll provide some password. Save. I'll go and I will go to the dashboard and execute. Now let me see. Actually it is taking from somewhere my authentication information. I need to see that where it is taking it from. Otherwise it should have been failed actually right now, because I had not provided the correct username and password. Jenkins is taking my Git credentials from somewhere. I'll see that. Okay, I'll see that, but it is taking my Git credentials from somewhere. But the main point is, like, you need to create one credentials entry. In that credentials entry, you will provide your username and password or username and access token, and then that credential entry you would be attaching here. Here you need to attach that credential entry.